Welcome back to Crooked History, a CK3 story playthrough. The show that brings you the most unbelievable tales from history, mostly because we're making them up. In this episode, we take a closer look at the waning years of Alfred Æthelwulfsson of Dorset, a man whose life would end before his dream of a united Ireland could be realized. By 900 AD, the Kingdom of Wessex was somewhat settled. Alfred was head of one of the most powerful families in Europe. The Cerdising dynasty was stronger than it had ever been. Alfred traced his lineage back directly to Cynric Cerdising, the founder and king of Wessex from 534 to 560, was his 8 times great-grandfather. Alfred was an unlikely ruler. He was the 4th son of Æthelwulf. His eldest brother Æthelbald died at 26. Ethelbert died at 29. Aethelswith, his sister, married Burgred of Mercia. Ethelred died at 28, which fatefully placed the crown on Alfred's head. Alfred and Ealhswith had 7 children of their own: Violet, Blair, Osber, Alfred II, Cynehild, Wulfmare, and Eadber. By 900 AD he was a grandfather to 16. 9 of them were still in House Wessex. From most of the records it appears that he was close with all of his children. But his relationship with his sons was different. Psychologist Dr. Poehler explains,
"As we look back on the 10th century and the many great kings that lived during that time, it's important to recognize the often difficult experience of their sons growing up in their shadow. For Alfred II and Wulfmare, their father was known far and wide as the Great, celebrated for his leadership, his military victories, his intellectual contributions. These were daunting precedents to follow, and the pressure to live up to their father's legacy often weighed heavily on them from early childhood. The psychological effects of this kind of legacy are complex. On the one hand, sons of great kings felt a powerful sense of pride and privilege, knowing that they were members of an elite class with unparalleled wealth, power, and influence. They were treated with deference and respect, surrounded by the trappings of royalty from the moment of their birth. On the other hand, this same privilege could be isolating and overwhelming, particularly for sons who felt they could never live up to their father's reputation. The burden of expectation could be suffocating, leading to feelings of inadequacy, low self-esteem, and even depression. It's worth noting that this kind of legacy wasn't limited to sons of kings. It could also affect daughters and other family members close to a father's greatness. But for sons who were expected to one day fill their father's mighty shoes, the psychological challenges were particularly acute. It's easy to look back and say a child didn't live up to their promise, but we should also remember the emotional toll that attempting to live up to these legacies could take, and the resilience and strength it took to persevere in such challenging circumstances.
In 901, Alfred planned a grand tour throughout the kingdom to let his people see him and to appreciate their king. It was a time of peace and restoration. The world changed again just 1 year later when his one-time enemy, the Duchy of West Riding, the home of Halfdan, sued the king to be vassalized and accepted into the Kingdom of Wessex. Alfred graciously accepted.
I doth send thee this missive, for I am besieging Togneil as the vassal within the realm. A Nordic tribal lord I be, dwelling neath the northern stars, near before having held dominion over a realm as vast as thine own. 'Tis me fervent plea to become a vassal of the noble domain. Histories tell of our past skirmishes, where the fires of ambition did stoke the hearts of me forebears. Yet driven not by ambition's flame, but by a yearning to witness me folk flourish, as I gaze upon the lands beyond our borders. I hold firm the belief that me people, as they toil, may bestow upon the kingdom a boon unmatched, elevating thee to greater opulence than thou presently possess. Pray, take into the consideration this humble plea, and grant me the privilege to render service as a devoted vassal within the sovereign lands. With gratitude for the time and contemplation. Respectfully. The Dukedom of West Riding.
Alfred had a reputation for being a fine storyteller. We don't know where that reputation began, but it's safe to assume it was probably born on military campaign but became widely known during this grand tour of the kingdom. In 902, Rhiwallon de Poher, Alfred's son-in-law and husband of Eadber, was overthrown, as was Domnall the Great Axe of Aelpin, the husband of Violet. Alfred spared no expense in bringing both of his daughters home. In 903, Duke Edwild, a man whom Alfred thought of as a friend, demanded he step down, citing his injuries and age.
To the royal presence of King Alfred, sovereign ruler of Wessex and beyond, with due respect to your exalted station, I, Eadwald, Duke of a realm loyal to these English shores, must now raise a matter of grave import. Let these words etch themselves upon parchment as a testament to my unwavering conviction. Thine reign, noble king, has been both admired and challenged, a paradox echoing through time. As the tides of fate ebb and flow, so doth the voices of discontentment within our land swell. Many a heart doth grumble, burdened by the weight of change thy rule hath wrought. 'Tis not my intent to undermine the sovereignty thou hast held, but to raise a voice for those who dare not. In earnest candour I beseech thee, King Alfred, to consider thy realm's greater good. The sun casts long shadows upon thy legacy, and 'tis with heavy heart I utter these words. The throne thou dost occupy may perchance be better served by another hand, one less embroiled in the intricacies of power and more aligned with the aspirations of the realm. Should thy wisdom illuminate thee to relinquish thy sceptre for the greater welfare of our land and the tranquillity of her subjects, know that history shall remember thee as a monarch of valour. May this entreaty reach thee in a spirit of earnest purpose, for the pages of destiny await the quill's ink to set forth the course of our realm's future. With sombre respect, Edwald, Duke of a fief bound to fate.
Alfred once again proved himself up to the task, besting Edwild in a duel. Finding it cumbersome to try and govern Leon, Alfred conceded his claim to Jarl Askell of Brittany. By 905, Alfred and Aelswith enjoyed time spent with their 23 grandchildren. He enjoyed the next few months in the peace and quiet of Dorset, but it never stays quiet for long. In February of 907, Flosi Ragnarsson invaded. Outnumbered 2-1, Aubrey, Alfred's marshal, destroyed the larger force with cunning and expert manoeuvres. The Battle of East Riding is still taught in military academies around the world. Flosi Ragnarsson's army was utterly destroyed. Flosi was captured and allowed to leave on condition that he never returned to Wessex. It was time for a new generation of marriages. Omer Aelpin married Duke Jocelyn the Count of Aquitaine. Gerroch MacDomnall, Alfred's granddaughter, married Duke Hugo II of Anjou 2 months after the battle. Wulfrun Seinhildota Wessex married the High Chieftain of Lothian, securing 3 strong allies for Wessex. Alfred was beginning to fear the end. His appetite waned, but he found solace in family. In December of 908, Alfred promoted a young unlanded knight named Karl to steward, to oversee development in the kingdom. Facing another war, Alfred listened to his wife and agreed not to lead the army, placing his Marshal Aubrey in command once again. Ironically, this decision to consider his own health placed him on a collision path with destiny, from what historians can piece together. Karl and André de Nimes were in an altercation. Karl drew his blade to strike André de Nimes, but missed plunging the dagger directly into Alfred's chest. King Alfred the Great died the next morning. He had ruled Wessex for 43 years. Upon his death, the kingdom was broken up. Alfred II would inherit Wessex, and his younger son, Wulfmare, became King of England. In next week's episode of A Crooked History, Wessex Edition, we continue our journey through the fascinating and often twisted world of alternative history. In next week's episode, we take a look at 2 noble sons, one built to rule and the other destined to survive. Until next week, farewell.